Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Very Cold Lasagna podcast. I am your host, Dylan Lasagna, and this is episode number 242 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports, for all you sports fanatics out there like you and me. In this episode, we're here to talk about the divisional playoffs that are coming up in the NFL this coming weekend, and honestly, let's just hope that it's much better than the wild card weekend that we got last week. Because boy, that was so. I'd say it was so disappointing. What we got out of all the 6 games that we got last week. Let's just hope that these Elite 8 games that we got coming up, these 4 Elite 8 matchups that we got, let's just hope that they're better. So anyway, before we talk about this divisional round weekend coming up, make sure follow Very Cold Lasagna on social media at Very Cold Lasagna. And then for all my audio listeners out there, make sure to keep on listening to Very Cold Lasagna on the go, wherever you get your podcasts out there, wherever Very Cold Lasagna is available, that being Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And keep on rating and reviewing the show. And for all my YouTube watchers out there, make sure to keep on watching. Make sure to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, which you should, by the way. And then smash the notification bell so you'll only be notified of each and every upload. Very Cold Lasagna on that YouTube channel. And leave your comments down below with your takes on the topic at hand, which being the divisional playoffs. We're going to be previewing them in just a bit. And share this with your friends. Share this with your neighbor. Share this with a stranger. Share this with your colleagues, whether it's at work or school. Share the good, the bad, the ugly about this podcast entitled Very Cold Lasagna. That being said, let's now talk about it. Let's give you our filthy casual preview to the NFL Divisional Playoffs, the 2024-25 edition. So, a little brief, filthy casual, I guess you could say, thingamajig, overview of what exactly is the Divisional Playoffs, the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. For those of you non-sports fans out there that might be wondering, why exactly do they call it the divisional playoffs? Funny if you ask me, I really don't know why they don't just call it the NFL semifinals, the NFL conference semifinals, like they do with the NBA. They have to use the fancy term divisional, like with the Major League Baseball, like the division series, and then the NLCS and whatnot. But side tangent, anyway. The divisional playoffs, or the quarterfinals of the NFL playoffs, it's exactly that. The second round of the NFL playoffs, which include the Elite 8, the last 8 remaining teams in the NFL that have survived the first round of the NFL playoffs, which was last week's event, the wild card round. AKA the first round matchup. The NFL playoffs. So here we are in the second round, the quarterfinals of the NFL playoffs, aka the divisional playoffs. So the winners of this week's matchup will go on to the conference championships, which will determine who will represent each conference, the AFC and the NFC, to determine the Super Bowl winner in February. But that's still a long ways away. For now, we're going to be talking about this week's slate of games that are the divisional playoffs, coming up this coming weekend relatively soon. So we got I'd say on paper, a pretty good lineup of games compared to last week. Not to say that last week's lineup of games was good. It's just that what we actually got was pretty disappointing. Like I said at the opening of the show, a pretty disappointing lineup of games that we actually got. So hopefully, divisional weekend will be a much better on-field product, and hopefully one that isn't riddled too much, at least with ref ball shenanigans. But we might possibly get at least one of these games riddled with ref ball. But hopefully it'll be entertaining, at least as long as we're entertained. So that's all that matters. So that being said, let's look at this divisional round slate of games coming up on Saturday and Sunday for all of our NFL fans out there and all the non-NFL fans out there. Starting on Saturday afternoon on the AFC side of things, the 4-seed Houston Texans, who had made it up to this point, take on the top-seeded Kansas City Chiefs, who were on a first-round bye, and now they're rested up, ready to defend their title once again. So that's going to be happening on ESPN and ABC. And this is a rematch of their Week 16 meeting in which the Chiefs beat the Texans 27-19 in that matchup. So when we look back at the week that was for the Houston Texans in that wild card game against the LA Sorry, I got the case of the Clippers with the Chargers again. But anyway, the Texans, they overcame a very bad start with the fumble on their opening snap. So they overcame a very bad start with that. It also came a slow start after that against the LA Chargers. CJ Stroud in the offense eventually caught fire before the end of the first half, taking a 7-6 lead, and then they took a 10-6 lead at halftime. And that followed up with a very strong defensive performance, highlighted by Eric Murray's pick six and a runaway victory for the Houston Texans, 32-12. So they blew open the doors in the second half against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, bullying him in that second half to take away that wild card win from LA, 32-12. Now, can they repeat that performance against the reigning, defending, undisputed, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs? Well, that remains to be seen. So speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said, they were on a bye week this past week as a result of earning the number one seed in the AFC, which basically what you get for getting the top spot in the conference. So looking back at this past season for the Kansas City Chiefs, like I said, they were the reigning, defending, undisputed, back-to-back Super Bowl champions. They won 2 years ago, and then they won the season before against, unfortunately, my team. That's not relevant right now, but I just had to point it out there. But anyway, the Chiefs entered this tournament looking to do what no team has ever done before in NFL history. Multiple teams have come close, but they have never come this close. Maybe as close as the Chiefs may do, and that's eat, sleep, conquer, the repeat. And for the YouTube watchers out there, is this the number? Am I doing the fingers right? Yeah, the repeat. So anyway, that's besides the point. So that's been their mantra all season long. Eat, sleep, conquer, the repeat. But when you look at how they played all season long, at least almost all season long, it may vary on your judgment because they were almost all their games were like one-score games. They were very tight contests, whether it was against their will or by their will. When you look at how they won said contests, it was on last-second field goals, like comebacks by them, near comebacks by the opposition, only to end in some sort of shenanigans, whether it's, well, the team that's trying to come back, their own undoing via turnovers, ref ball shenanigans, or by some other form of luck. Yeah, that's basically the Kansas City Chiefs most of their season in a nutshell. Now, they did manage to tighten down and play how their fans expected them to play this season, and that was more aggressive football on both sides in the last three meaningful games of the year, which included against the Houston Texans. So they played to how they were supposed to play, like Patrick Mahomes, who had a bit of a down year. Once he got all of his weapons back, that being Marquise Hollywood Brown, and then Isaiah Pacheco, and then they traded for DeAndre Hopkins too, and then Travis Kelce, who was also kind of having a weird year with his usual chemistry with Patrick Mahomes, but for some reason wasn't there. And then you also have a rookie receiver in Xavier Worthy. So, yeah, you're still trying to figure out all these pieces and what's been a very weird year for Kansas City. So, nonetheless, they're still finding ways to win these games. And then you still have a very strong defense, led by defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo. So they're still finding ways to win these games. And then you get to the last 3 meaningful games of the year for Kansas City. They're playing much better football. And now that they're healthier, they have a very good shot at accomplishing the first ever three-peat in NFL history. So going into this game, they're pretty favored going into it. Looking at the injury report for both of these teams, I mean, at this point in the year, when it comes to the second round of the playoffs, by this point, they're either healthy or they're just going by. So for the Texans, Azeez Al-Shaair, Joe Mixon, Robert Woods, a couple key players, they're all listed as questionable to play. They were pretty limited in practice, so we'll see how they shape up. For the Chiefs, they did get some news on starting corner Jalen Watson, who has been out with a broken fibula since week 7 when he injured it. So he has a chance to potentially come back for this game. If the Chiefs do win this one to go to the AFC title game, he may have a chance to come back in that one. So looking at the biggest key to victory for both of these teams, the Texans defense, it's going to have to repeat their success from their wildcard game and do it against Mahomes and the Chiefs. Now, I know I get to talk about CJ Stroud and how that offense needs to perform because let's be real. For as successful as the Texans defense was against Justin Herbert and their offense, yeah, I mean, CJ Stroud and that offense could certainly do a lot more work, but it's the Texans defense that's really gonna have to find a way to shut down all of those weapons that the Chiefs will have, especially now that they're healthier. So that Texans defense, who did lose a few other key pieces during the regular season, they're going to have to find a way to clamp down on the Chiefs' offense, especially considering that they weren't able to do it when they last met each other just a couple weeks ago in December. For the Chiefs, follow the formula from how you played in the final 3 weeks of the year, like the final 3 meaningful weeks of the year, and don't let the Houston Texans hang around when you built this sizable lead, especially if the Texans are not playing relatively well. Consider it. Like I said, like it's repeatedly saying, they're healthier now. You have Hollywood Brown back. You got DeAndre Hopkins there now. Isaiah Pacheco's there. Kareem Hunt's back. So you pretty much have all this deep, talented depth on your roster, while also having Travis Kelce. You still got Xavier Worthy there, the rookie, all at Mahomes' disposal. Matt Nagy needs to utilize pretty much everything that's there. We all saw how they were in the lineup in those 3 meaningful games. So it'll be on them to continue their aggressive approach on offense to put this game away early so they can go to the AFC Championship game. So looking at this game, I do think the Texans front 7 may give Mahomes some trouble up front, but I do think eventually they'll all shake it, the Chiefs will eventually shake them off, and so will the rest of this team, because the Achilles heel for that Texans defense is their secondary. And eventually Mahomes will find his stride, whether it be by him or by some other luck. Because that's been the theme of the Chiefs this year. So CJ Stroud in the offense, again, they also only really attacked the Chargers twice in that game against LA. But the Chiefs defense will present a much more difficult challenge for CJ Stroud. Again, who will be without 2 of his top receivers in Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Because, like I said, all he really has is Nico Collins. So I'm going with the Chiefs in this one. They won't win it convincingly, but they'll pull away enough late in the game to advance to their 9th straight AFC title game. I know some people won't like that, but let's be honest here. The Texans are so dinged at the moment that, sure, they got away with it against the Chargers, but even with the Jim Harbaugh, that's the Clippers. Yeah. The defense, again, might keep them in it, but I don't see them doing it against Kansas City. So, sorry. I thought the Texans could have had a shot at finally getting to their first AFC Championship game this year, but with all the injuries and CJ Stroud's slight regression this year, I don't see it happening right now, unfortunately. Hey, crazier things have happened though. So looking at the NFC side of things, for the Saturday nightcap, we have the 6th-seeded Washington Commanders taking on the top-seeded Detroit Lions in what I think is going to be a very intriguing battle on Fox to close out the Saturday slate. So neither of these teams faced each other in the regular season, but like I said, the second most intriguing battle on divisional weekend. So when you look at how the Commanders did in their wildcard game against the Bucks on the road as a 6th seed, obviously being the best game, like the only good game on wildcard weekend between two Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks, like it was a back and forth affair. Like Baker Mayfield and the Bucks trying to will his team back into the game. They had the lead up on Jayden Daniels and the Commanders, but Jayden led his team on another game-winning drive to get his kicker Austin Seibert in range for the game winner, and they got the Commanders their first playoff win in nearly 20 years, 23-20. Like Jayden Daniels, like I thought that the inexperience was gonna bite him in the face, but no, he was just a natural. He was just a natural in that game, despite some of the players around him, like a little jitterish in that one. But they really, they all really withstood the bright lights of a playoff game, of a playoff environment, to move on to the next round. So this one's going to be a really big test, though, against this Lions team that a year ago, not a lot of expectations were there for them in their own playoff run, because they looking at this top seed Detroit Lions team, they entered this recent season looking to right the wrong, because last year, at this point in the year for Detroit, they were just happy, like their fan base at least was just happy to finally make the playoffs, finally be the NFC North champion for the first time in 30 years, finally win a playoff game in over 30 years against the LA Rams. Like they expect to get a second playoff home game. And when they beat the Tampa Bay Bucks in their second playoff home game, they went to the NFC Championship game. And they had an opportunity. They had an opportunity to go to their first ever Super Bowl. Like they were 30 minutes away from going to their first ever Super Bowl. It's just unfortunate that it all came crashing down, where they blew a 24-7 halftime lead to the 49ers. So they took that all personally. They could have just crashed down back to reality this season, but no. They're looking to right the wrong from that NFC Championship game against the 49ers. And after starting out 1-1, they only lost just one game the rest of the way because of their fiery and creative offense led by Jared Goff and this dynamic two-headed rushing attack in David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. What's their tagline? Oh yeah, Sonic and Knuckles. Yeah, that really creative offense led by Ben Johnson, the offense coordinator. It's like this Lions team, yeah, they want to finish their story. They finally want to get what's theirs, go to their first ever Super Bowl, and win it. So they're looking to finish their story this year. And this is despite a litany of injuries to their defense. Like they're so beat up on defense that they're still finding ways to win with their offense. And in the last week of the regular season, they beat the brakes off the Minnesota Vikings, who kept pace with them in the NFC North in the final, like I said, the final game of the regular season, to win both the division, the NFC North, and the NFC's top seed at 15-2. So that Lions team got the much needed bye week to hopefully get some players back on defense, which I don't know. I don't think they are right now, as it seems, which kind of sucks. So hopefully they'll get some players back if they do make it to the next game. But yeah, I would have thought that the bye week would have helped get some of their key missing players back on the defensive side of the ball. But it doesn't seem that to be the case. which is unfortunate. But hey, at least the bye week does help the Lions a bit when it comes to rest. So look at the injury report for both of these teams. For the Commanders, Marshawn Lattimore and Frankie Louvu, they both left the game at various points with some injuries, but it looks like they're good to go for Saturday's game. For the Lions, corner Terrion Arnold is okay after leaving Week 18 with a foot issue, so he'll be suited up. And David Montgomery, speaking of, I talked about him earlier. He's set to return after missing a couple weeks in the last couple weeks of the regular season with an knee injury. He's set to come back for this game, so get ready for the return of the duo of Sonic and Knuckles, Montgomery and Gibbs. So that's just really help out the Lions rushing attack. So looking at the biggest key to victory for both of these teams going into this second most intriguing game of the divisional playoffs. If the Commanders want to have any chance of a massive upset, like they're probably the biggest underdog in this divisional playoffs, they got to find any way to slow down Jared Goff in that offense. I mean, it's that simple. If you're looking at it from a filthy casual perspective, you got to find a way to shut down that offense. This is going to be very difficult, though, because you're going to have a lot of trouble getting to Jared Goff, even with that defensive line of Jonathan Allen, Dorrance Armstrong. Like, it's going to be very difficult. And what's going to be more difficult is shutting down his litany of weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, that running back duo, especially in the passing game. The passing defense for the Commanders has been very troublesome this season. So the Commanders going to have a lot of work cut out for them. So they're going to be in for a challenge, but they got to find any way to slow down Jared in that offense. For the Lions, I know the offense is going to be do a lot of the heavy lifting, but their defense can't let Jane Daniels scramble up past the line of scrimmage. That front four, it really stepped up in a big game 2 weeks ago against Sam Darnold and the Vikings. But I mean, Jane Daniels, I mean, I get it. This is not a fair comparison to say, but he's a more mobile quarterback than Sam Darnold. So the Lions, you can't let him escape the pocket. You can't let him use his legs to get past the line of scrimmage, to extend plays, get first downs, and all that. So the Lions simply cannot let him get past the line of scrimmage or escape the pocket with his mobility. So that's how Jane Daniels will beat you on downs. So the Lions have to quickly get to him. So this game's going to be... It can go a lot of ways for the Lions. But I do believe that the Commanders will fight. They'll always keep fighting as long as Jane Daniels keeps them in it. I just do think, though, unless they do get another big game from Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown, the bright season just unfortunately comes to an end in the Motor City, because the Detroit Lions, they're a much more loaded team. They're habanero hot. They'll be a little rusty because they're coming off a 2-week layoff. So I do think the Lions will be just too much to overcome for the Washington Commanders. But again, like I said in the last episode with the wildcard recap, the Commanders and their fan base, they should be very happy of how far they've gotten in this season. 12 wins and even getting a playoff win that a lot of people, including me, I picked the wrong team, clearly. Like, a lot of people didn't expect them to get. So, Commanders fans, you should be proud in the first year of your true rebuild. Like, getting a playoff win, and clearly, you clearly got your guy. So, I just do think that it ends here in Detroit. But the future is finally shining bright in the nation's capital. So looking at the Sunday slate of games, continuing on the NFC side of things, as we have the LA Rams as the 4th seed taking on the 2-seed Philadelphia Eagles on NBC. So this is a rematch from their Week 12 meeting down in LA that the Eagles won very handedly. So looking at both of their wildcard games from last week, the underdog Rams as the NFC West champions, like, a lot of people didn't pick them to win this game. I didn't pick them to win this game, and man, we were all so wrong. And boy, did they win their game, and they won it by laying the smackdown on the 14-win Vikings with the big night from their young defense. That sacked Sam Darnold 9 freaking times. Yeah, 9 times they sacked Sam Darnold. 9 times that they harassed Sam Darnold. And they forced 2 turnovers, 1 for a touchdown, in a blowout upset on, a 14-win Vikings team, 27-9. Yeah. I don't know if that says a lot about the Rams or the Vikings, but hey, credit to the Rams though. Everyone doubted them, and then look what happened to the Vikings. Woof. Just woof. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Eagles, they took on the Green Bay Packers. And man, it was pretty much, I'd say, all Eagles from the start. Or you could also say the Packers beat the Packers, because the Eagles got an early gift thanks to Keyshawn Nixon's opening kickoff fumble. However, they struggled for half of the game on offense before buckling down on both sides as Jalen Hurts, he threw a touchdown to Dallas Goedert, and Dallas Goedert stiff-armed a bunch of people on the way to the end zone. And they got a couple Jake Elliott field goals to help them pull away from the Packers, beating themselves up into the ground 22-10. So the Eagles and their defense, they beat up on Jordan Love as well, but it's basically the Packers just making a litany of one too many mistakes in this one. And the Eagles are moving on to the next round to face the Rams in this Week 12 rematch. So looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the Rams, Tyler Higbee and Ahkello Witherspoon exited the game with injuries in that wild card game, but per Sean McVay in practices, they should be good to go for that one as long as nothing comes up. For the Eagles, they're also relatively healthy, but they lost one of their key linebackers, Nakobe Dean, to a major knee injury. So it also sounds like going to next season, he could miss part of next season. So not good news for the Eagles when it comes to next year and their defense, and also kind of not good news for right now, because it's a blow to their front seven. But let's see how it goes, because Dean is a key part to that linebacking core. So let's see how it plays out in this game against the Rams. So the biggest key to victory for the Rams is that defense that managed to tear apart Sam Darnold, they got to find a way to slow down Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. In that last game in LA, the Rams were unable to contain Saquon. They also were unable to slow down Jalen Hurts or get any pressure on Jalen Hurts. So when it came to Saquon, he went all over. He went all over that Rams defense, especially in the run. He went over 300 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, in hostile territory, the Rams got to find a way to shut that down. Now, in fairness, they weren't fully healthy yet, but even at full strength, now that they're pretty much at full strength now, they need the run defense to minimize all chances for Saquon, whether it's in the middle, on the side, left or right. They have to neutralize the Eagles' best running back and prevent him from catching fire. And they also have to force Jalen, who is coming off a 2-week layoff and still kind of rusty. They got to force Jalen Hurts to beat them in the air. And they also have to prevent him from catching fire. So looking at it from the Eagles' perspective, they need Jalen Hurts to really catch fire as well. They need to have him be just more than just modest, because his performance last week, again, understandable given he was just coming off a 2-week layoff in the concussion protocol, but he's got to deliver more consistent performance and throw it to the likes of Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, not have him on the sidelines reading a book. I mean, nothing wrong with reading books, but Yeah, you got to get your players involved though, and especially like target them in the passing game. So Jalen Hurts got to be more consistent, and got to start catching fire because throwing under 200 yards, and not really necessarily looking good doing it. I mean, it's something in a playoff game. I wouldn't say necessarily not doing good, but not up to standard. That's how I'd like to put it. So, yeah, Jalen's got to be more consistent in this game. So, when you look at what I would predict in this one, I would say I have very close margin the Eagles. The Rams front seven will give them a challenge, even against a very good offensive line that the Eagles will have. But I think the Eagles' own defense will give Matthew Stafford a lot of fits all day long, just like they did in the last game. Especially if Stafford can't get anyone else, not named Puka Nacua, going. Looking at you, Cooper Kupp. Looking at you. So I expect the Eagles to start slow, especially because Jalen Hurts, for some reason, still likes to start slow, even under a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. But they eventually take control of this game with their defense and maybe a better performance from Jalen Hurts. So I have the Eagles and the Lions facing each other in the NFC Championship game when it's all said and done. So looking at the last AFC Divisional Playoff game, and probably the most intriguing and interesting divisional round game of the weekend, we have the 3-seeded Baltimore Ravens taking on the 2-seeded Buffalo Bills on CBS in the nightcapper and the closer of divisional weekend. Boy. A rematch of their Week 4 meeting in Baltimore. The Ravens dominated that game 35-10. But probably the more intriguing storyline of this one, 2 MVP quarterbacks going head-to-head in this one. Lamar Jackson taking on Josh Allen. Probably, like I said in the last episode, the AFC Championship game before the AFC Championship game. Like, could we be seeing the real AFC title game before like the actual AFC Championship game? I don't know. Like, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but we'll see what happens, man. But this is probably my most exciting, my most like anticipated game of the weekend, just like everyone else. But by a very close margin, it's the Lions and Commanders one. But this one is probably the most intriguing one of them all because, like, who do you even go with in this one? Like, who do you even go with? But before we even get into my very hard to choose pick, let's get to how we even got here. Let's talk about both of their wild card games and how they won those ones. So for the Ravens, they dominated their game against the Pittsburgh Steelers from start to finish. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, they torched the Steelers on the ground. 4 combined touchdowns together. Derrick Henry had 2 on the ground, and then Lamar Jackson threw for 2. And their defense, once again, stymied Russell Wilson and pretty much limited how much the Steelers could do in the air. And they beat the Steelers in this divisional 3 match 28-14. And when I mean division rivalry, not divisional round. But I digress. Meanwhile, for the Buffalo Bills, they were walking into I'd say a dangerous game with the Denver Broncos and the rookie quarterback Bo Nix. And it started to become a dangerous game early with Bo Nix in Denver because they let Bo Nix in Denver strike early, very aggressively. They took a touchdown lead early in just with a minute or two into the game. But Josh Allen and the Bills, they overcame a slow start and they scored slowly but surely. Scored 31 unanswered points the rest of the way. Denver didn't score anything after that. So Josh Allen and the Bills pulled away from that one, 31-7 over the Denver Broncos. And that's how we got to this matchup right here. So, again, this is probably the hardest game to go, you know what? Like, where do you even pick? Like, how do you even decide, like, who wins here? Because you got 2 MVP quarterbacks, Sure, they have the Ravens have Derrick Henry, and the Ravens have a lot of firepower with Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and then you have Isaiah Likely. But then you also have Josh Allen, who can make, even though he doesn't really have a top receiver. Sure, he has Amari Cooper, he has Keon Coleman, he also has James Cook. But even if he didn't have like these star players around him, he could still make something out of nothing out of whoever's around him. And his front four on the defensive side, it's still pretty good too. So there's a lot of things at play here. And like, this is a matchup that's very, 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 very hard to pick. So looking at the injury report for both of these teams, for the Bills, they're relatively healthy going into this one. But for the Ravens, they're also relatively healthy, but they could be missing a key person again for this matchup, and that's Zay Flowers. Because unfortunately, he's still dealing with that knee issue that he suffered in that AFC North clincher against Cleveland 2 weeks ago. And it's not looking good that he could not play in this one against the Bills in what's going to be a very tight contest. So now they're saying that he could play even without practice, but that's really stretching it, if you ask me. So looking at the biggest key to victory for both of these teams, that Bills front seven, they got to shut down Derrick Henry. In all the years, like I say since 2020, in my opinion, in the last couple of years, since the Bills faced Derrick Henry, they have not been able to shut his butt down. Like, they have not been able to contain him. I say the only exception was, there hasn't been an exception. Like, they have not been able to, like, someone could actually fact check me on that, in my opinion. I retract that statement. I said before that. But anyway, reciting that, the Bills have had a very hard time shutting down Derrick Henry, stopping him on the run. It's like trying to out-physical him. They have to find a way to shut him down and take him down on the ground to really force Lamar Jackson they got to challenge Lamar Jackson in the air. See what he's got. So that brings into the Ravens side of things. The offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, he needs to scheme something up for Lamar Jackson, the passer, to prevent any predictability the Bills are going to be expecting. This way, Lamar, the passer, can unload his full complement of weapons. We need to see Mark Andrews get involved. We need to see Rashad Bateman get involved. Isaiah Likely. I haven't heard his name in like weeks and months. Like, I feel like since the only time we've really heard him was week 1, week 2, week 3. Like, it's been a long while since we heard Isaiah Likely's name. So all these names in the passing game, we need to hear their name more than twice, because like Lamar Jackson really needs to go to them, especially with Zay Flowers more than likely potentially going to be out, unless he's really going to be out there without any practice playing on that injured knee. And it could potentially be aggravated. So looking at this game, in one that's going to be pretty exciting to watch, probably the one with most intrigue, between two MVP candidates. It's very hard. It's very hard to predict. They both have a legitimate case to play what's more than likely going to be the Chiefs in the AFC title game. But when you look at the grander scheme of things, some people will like it, some people won't. But I'm going to... Damn. My gut says the Buffalo Bills. My gut says Josh Allen and the Bills. It's like, I just trust Josh in these clutch situations. Even if he doesn't really have that number one receiver. Like I said, this season, he's shown that he can still make these random guys something. He can still make them something. So I just feel like the Bills will finally get past the hump this time around. Granted, there's no wide right, or Josh Allen doesn't make a stupid decision or stupid turnover late in the game. I feel like they'll finally get over the hump, step one, by the way, and make it back to the AFC Championship game for the first time in 4 years. I know it's a very hard pick because the Ravens also have a legitimate case, but it's just like, damn. I feel like the Bills. It's like there's something there. There's real something there. Josh Allen's like, I feel like he's playing with the vendetta right now. Like he really wants to prove something, and I feel like he can do it. So it's tough. So those are my divisional picks, and yeah, that's pretty much my lineup for the conference championship games. We have the Lions and the Eagles, and then we got the Chiefs and the Bills. So it can always change because you never know in the NFL. Like there's always a sense of unpredictability, unless ref ball is there to decide that. But and that's another case for another time. But yeah, those are my predictions. That's my filthy casual preview to the NFL Divisional Playoff Weekend. Let me know who you're rolling with this weekend if you're gonna be watching it, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't. But if you are, let me know your predictions. Which 4 teams are you going with in the comments below, and why you're going with them. And yeah, hopefully this weekend will deliver compared to wildcard weekend. And yeah, we're just halfway there until the Super Bowl, and then we get to cry about how we're going to be missing the next 7 months until the next season in the NFL. But let's relive it while it lasts, and even though whoever our team is not in the playoffs. But anyway, that is it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. I am been your filthy casual host, Dylan Lasagna. Thank you for tuning to this episode number 242 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all your filthy casual sports takes. And until the next one, like I said, keep that lasagna very cold. And until I see you, when I see you in the next one, where we review all these games in the divisional round and who will be moving on to Conference Championship Sunday with the NFC and AFC Championship games, and who will be moving on to the Super Bowl in NOLA, New Orleans. Until we review those games in the next episode, peace out.